could have one final dance, one final chance to dance with my father again. I'll play a song that will never, never end. Oh, I wish I could have that chance to dance with my father again. Da-da, da-da-da-da-da. How many of you remember that song, Martin Luther's song? Sorry, Luther Vandross song. Wow, being a fatherless child. Days like this make me, I'm not gonna cry, I promise. Okay? Days like this make me very emotional. You know, tomorrow is Father's Day, and it's amazing how Father's Day became an international holiday in the United States since 1970, and we didn't get to know about it in Nigeria. Yeah, at least I didn't know that we celebrated Father's Day. And I say that because Mother's Day has always been a thing that even in school we used to do craft. We would create cards, you know, little art and craft works for the mothers, but you would always hear the fathers complaining that men were never celebrated. There was never anything to celebrate men. And a part of me really felt kind of sad that it didn't feel balanced as a child. That there was Mother's Day, but there was no Father's Day in Nigeria. When I was growing up, I'm talking about the 80s, the 90s, I think even to the 2000s, I can't really recall if we ever had something called Father's Day. I suspect, having traveled a little bit, that perhaps in Orthodox churches, they did have that because I know in the Catholic Church there is what we call Saint Lumumba's Day, where basically it's a celebration for men in the Catholic Church where they wear their black suits, right? So outside of that men's celebration, which doing my research, I realized in Spain, in Italy, that is what is used. That is a day that is used to celebrate Father Saint Joseph's Day. So I'm thinking probably many Orthodox churches had those days like that where they celebrated their fathers on a certain Sunday, which is the 19th of March. But Father's Day is celebrated on the third Sunday of June, which is tomorrow. And it's interesting to me that it also began as it was initiated also by a daughter, just like Mother's Day was initiated by a daughter who wanted to celebrate her mom, and the celebration now took that the ritual of mothers receiving white carnation flowers. For those of you who don't know, that was how it started in the United States. Another American woman called Hello Catricicle. How are you? Welcome. Sonora Smart uh, was raised by a single dad, Mr. William Smart, and he had to be father and mother to his 6 children because he had lost his wife during childbirth. She was giving birth to their sixth child and she passed on. And the normal thing back then, even now, would have been to remarry so that he could have a female figure for his kids. But he didn't do that. Instead, he was a working dad. Literally, he was a working dad who raised his children. And so Sonora grows up and is attending a Mother's Day celebration, and she's thinking, I didn't know my mom. I wasn't raised by my mom. How come we're not celebrating my dad? Because there are other fathers like him who have been father and mom to their kids, I think they should be celebrated. And so Sonora begins to speak to the pastors, to the bishop, to the local councilmen, and it meets with a lot of resistance. First of all, and that is very interesting for me, is the fact that we just assume that the men are not emotional, that men don't want to be celebrated. It was too emotional, too frivolous for men because they are tough, they are strong. It's a normal thing, and so they just felt like it was one more excuse for men not to go to work. So why should we celebrate them? Whereas women, because they always stayed at home, they had to be acknowledged. And so Mother's Day didn't meet with a lot of confrontation, or rather resistance, whereas Father's Day was met with a lot and lot of resistance. And so somewhere in 1907 or 1900, yeah, in the early 1900s, let me be safe, there was an accident where there were about 100 or so miners who had died in a place called Monongan. And so there was the next year, because a lot of those miners were fathers, there was a service in their honor. And so some historians attribute that to the first Father's Day. However, that date is not repeated, that ceremony, celebration or memory service is not held again. So Sonora Smart Dot is accredited as the founder of Father's Day in the United States. And so people start accepting it. I think in her community in Spokane, I don't remember what state that Spokane is in. So, but then the local community celebrates the fathers. And with time, people are advocating, not until in 1970 when Richard Nixon officially makes it a national holiday. So it became a national holiday in the 1970s. That is about 70 more years down the line, and it's funny because there are a lot of single fathers. There are fathers who are doing exceptionally well, more so in today's world where we have more mothers working out of the home, we have more women who are independent, and we have, by consequence, we have more fathers. Whether we like it or not, there are more fathers, single fathers, I mean, who are raising their children by themselves. You just have to go through social media and you will see a lot of them. I remember a few weeks ago reading through threads where this man was asking for help about to get advice rather on undies because he was buying too much undies for his daughters, and there was an abundance of information. Everybody was giving their opinion why their underwears were not lasting, or the other dad who had to be helped by a lady in the supermarket because he had to go buy toiletries, sanitary towels and things for his daughter who didn't even know what she wanted. So he just had to go in as the adult and make that inquiry and buy it. And the role of men is really, really changing in parenting this century, and I'm very proud of fathers who are stepping up. Fathers who, like one actor in Nigeria said, he was the one who cut off the umbilical cord of his child. His child received his first beating from his hands, because he was hands-on from birth. So his were the first hands that received that child. And for me, it doesn't get better than that. You don't get prouder than that moment where you can say, I'm a hands-on dad, literally, like from the womb, I've been your father. And there are many of them. Some people just don't choose to celebrate. However, when it comes to the African context, we have this culture that makes men ashamed of their vulnerability, where they have been conditioned to swallow their emotion, to not feel their emotion or even express it. You understand? So that you see when fathers are celebrated, they first of all are like shocked, and then they like, okay, hope we just get this over with. And then the next thing, they're crying because of buried trauma, because of hidden emotions. It's really hard for our African fathers. That was one of the things that I love uh, about Ecuadorian men. Ecuadorian men are not ashamed to cry. Mm-mm. I've seen ministers cry right there on the pulpit, and not because they're trying to evoke emotion for from the audience, but just because they themselves were overwhelmed by a particular song. And it's human. It's human for us to feel those emotions and express them. Fathers kissing their babies, crying when they walking their daughters to the altar, those affections, and for those fathers, tomorrow is going to be a beautiful day for them. Unfortunately or sadly, not unfortunately, sadly, for people like us whose fathers have passed on, have gone to rest, it's also a reminder of what we've been living without. That is the guidance of a dad, the encouragement of a father, the moral support, the psychological support, financial support. We're going to miss that. And yet, there are other men who have stepped up to the plate to say, your dad may not be here, but I'll be here for you. And for those fathers, we are grateful. Father figures. If you don't have one, you really, really need to have one. I am blessed to have so many father figures, in my life, people who have been there to comfort, to counsel, to pray with me, to pray for me, and I'm blessed. And tomorrow I join their biological children to celebrate them, to say, thank you that you took us under your wings, even though you had your own children to look after, but you saw us without that paternal covering and you took us under your wings. And then you have the negative side, which many of us ignore, is the fact that many people grew up without fathers. That is really, really unfortunate, because I've met a lot of people who don't even know their fathers. They never knew their fathers, not because death took them, but because the father denied them, or the mother was abused and so she didn't know who impregnated her, or she was careless. For some reason, they just don't know their dad, or the lady knew who was responsible for the pregnancy, but the father just didn't want to take responsibility. So they didn't know them physically, they didn't know them also emotionally, or otherwise. And so tomorrow also is a difficult day for those people. A lot of those fathers also became fathers when they were not even ready, to be dads, childhood, teenage pregnancies, fathers who found themselves at the wrong place at the wrong time and have ended up in prison, or criminals who have ended up in prison, and so they are not being able to be present in their father's lives, and those who grew up without a father at some point in time because the fathers didn't want anything to do with them, or again, they were criminals and had to go to face jail time, and so what I've realized that for such people, two things happen: is either that trauma doesn't heal and they grow, and they become the same thing, they repeat it because they feel, well, I didn't have a father figure, I didn't have anybody to show me what it means to be a dad, therefore I don't want to be a dad, I don't want to give what I didn't receive. And you have the other angle, the other side, who, because they really felt the lack of fatherhood, they endeavor to become better fathers themselves. So they become good dads, becoming everything that they needed and wanted in the lives of their own children. Sometimes they don't even have biological children, but they become father figures in the life of the children of their communities, maybe at church, maybe in their neighborhood. You find a lot of them, they are teachers and they take their pupils under their wings and become the father figures to those kids, you know. And to those fathers, I want to say we celebrate you, we see you, we appreciate you, we are grateful for men like you in the world, present fathers, fathers who have not just been there materially, but emotionally, psychologically. And let's make Father's Day memorable for these men. Let's celebrate them. Hi, Viola. Let's celebrate them. You know, I live in a country where family ties is very, very strong, is everything. So already the neighborhood is a bit noisy. I'm fine, Viola. And you? How are you? Where are you writing from? You know, so tomorrow after church, it's gonna be a day of eating. Many people are going to take their dads to the beaches. How do you say your name? Vaila. I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing your name wrong then. Sorry. So, you know, it's going to be family time, just like Mother's Day. They don't have really special occasions here where they celebrate Father's Day. I think in other countries, like in France, because I'm learning French, I learned it started in France through a marketing scheme where a company that was making lighters decided that a lighter was a cool thing. Uh, it is. I've never met someone with that name. Okay, so they decided lighters was a good gift. Lighters were a good gift to give to fathers. So that was the marketing strategy. Why don't you buy your father a lighter? Which tells you what was the norm during that era, you know, in the 1950s, that smoking was quite a norm. It was quite a sociable, was an socially acceptable norm for men to smoke, and so they ran with it. So from that, everybody was like, okay, I'm going to give my father that. So since we were buying it for Father's Day, that was how they celebrated that, you know. And it's funny because that was one of the reasons why Father's Day had met with resistance in the United States, to say the marketing world was just looking for another occasion, opportunity to sell gifts, you know. And whereas in France, yes, that was a marketing strategy. But at the end of the day, it has become a family tradition where people don't just buy the lighters anymore. What is happening right now is that kids do arts and craft from primary school and nursery schools. Children do cards or little arts and crafts to present to their fathers as gifts, which is what they do in Ecuador for the mothers. I don't know if they do that also for Father's Day, because right now school is in session. Probably they do that here. I don't know. I don't have kids, so I don't know, but they do that for the mothers. And those gifts that these kids make are more sentimental, which will be for me, you know, are more sentimental to. Oh, where is that? 56 people. That's a tiny, tiny village, Viola. What's the name of that city? Okay, so I take it perhaps English is not your first language. All right, okay, okay. So yeah, that's all I wanted to say. Tomorrow, for those of you who still have your fathers, happy Father's Day. And to all the fathers out there, celebrate your dads while you can, because they won't be here forever. You know, if you're one of those people who still has a father who is alive, but you are not in good terms, I hope you heal enough to find um, the grace to forgive or to ask for forgiveness and make amends with your dad, because even if for nothing, if you're a parent by now, you know your kids need their grandfather in their life. They need their grandfathers in their life. Your niece needs a nephew. If it's your cousin, they need uncles. Your father could be someone's uncle, or brother-in-law. Family is everything. That's what I'm trying to say. I don't have a father. I don't have a mother. I always tell my younger friends, make amends with your parents. Always make amends with your parents, because they won't be here forever. Okay, so to the fathers, to the children, to the uncles, nieces, let's go celebrate our fathers tomorrow. And don't worry, it's fine. It's okay. It's okay. It's all right there. I'm closing anyway. So to everyone, I wish you happy Father's Day. Hope you celebrate your dad tomorrow. Happy Father's Day, and I'll see you guys next week. Bye bye. Thank you for watching. If you're not subscribed, please consider subscribing. Okay, ciao.